everyone in showy ovaries town. Kia ora, haere mai, and welcome along to the podcast where I, possibly perimenopausally Penny Ashton, talk to various women and owners of ovaries all about their menopause journeys in an attempt to educate myself and as many people as possible, all about the potential pitfalls of the stuttering end of our periods, and where I seek to alliterate with the letter P preposterously often. Just a reminder, I am not a doctor, though I did get my first aid badge in brownies. But if you do need some more advice on what's happening to your bits, please get in touch with a medical professional and not someone who got a certificate from Brown Owl. Today's guest I first became aware of from a spin-off article she wrote about the veritable cornucopia of treatments that she is using to mitigate menopause's pangs. She lives in Palmerston North, is the director of the Counselling Centre in Martin, a mother of two with a small 21-year age gap between them, and someone who was as flabbergasted as I was that we are not taught more about our bodies. So please welcome Anna Sophia. Hooray! Hello, hello.
Hello, Penny. Thanks
Hello.
for tracking me down. I'm a little bit reclusive, so good on you for finding me.
Oh, wow. Well, if you put yourself on the spin-off, then you can be found.
Yeah, I know. And that was really strange because I've written bits and pieces in my life, but I hadn't actually written anything for 8 years. I've been busy, clearly having a second child. I've actually been an active mother now for 35 years.
Yes.
But I've always, I'm kind of a bit of a wannabe writer, but this felt like a very, very important thing to write about. I'd accumulated all this information and I was just astounded. But I did think that maybe everybody knew this stuff except me. So there was just this real feeling that because I'd been so busy living my life that I'd missed this.
Right.
Don't usually miss anything. I like to think that I actually know quite a lot of things and I got my finger on the pulse of contemporary life, all of that thing. But what say for some reason I had just missed it? And then I'd be writing this article and putting it out there and everybody would just laugh at me and say, oh, well, she's a bit dumb. She's completely missed the boat. But I began to talk to people and especially my colleagues. So I'd listen to podcasts by Dr. Lousie Newson over in the UK. Now, she is the menopause guru. If anybody wants to listen to her, she's got, I think, 120 podcasts. She talks to lots of different people. So I'd listen to them on my way over to work. And I'd arrive at work and I'd say, oh my goodness, I feel like something has been missing in my brain, in my life. Did you know this? And I talked to a range of my colleagues, were a range of ages, some older, some younger. And I'd go, no. No. Are we talking to our clients about this? No. We have a referral system. Half of our clients are referred from GPs. So I went back through a whole lot of referrals, just reading them through. I mean, somebody might be in their 50s. They might not be sleeping. They might be feeling really tearful or anxious or having relationship issues. They've been sent for counselling. I'm scanning the referral. Is there any mention of menopause? There is no mention of menopause.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and that's just quintessential symptoms.
Yeah. So they're coming in with that referral, and then the counsellor, if they're not asking and saying, have you thought about menopause? How's your menopause going? Then who's talking about it? Nobody's talking about menopause.
Yeah.
So then if we're saying, well, okay, this is not menopause, this is depression or anxiety, it's a whole different approach. So until I was actually there myself, yes, so all these lights were going on inside my head. I kept writing things down. I kept reading more. I had all this note paper scattered everywhere. And I thought, I'm going to write something for the New Zealand Association of Counsellors. And so I just tried to write. It took me ages to write. My writing brain was a bit rusty.
And maybe menopausally
wasn't working, actually.
Yeah, right.
So I wrote something and I hadn't actually know where to put it because there's a counselling journal, which is very academic. And so I thought, oh, well, look, I'll just write it for the general population and just see if anyone wants it. And I think I heard back from the spin-off in about 10 minutes. It was like, oh, yeah, this is really interesting.
That's great because I pitched this podcast to them and they turned it down. But that's great.
This podcast is great. I've listened to all the episodes so far and I've just been thrilled. I just think, great, this is really, really awesome and people need to listen to this.
Thank you.
So,
did you get a lot of people, because I sent you a message going, thank you. Did you get a lot of other people?
I did. A lot of people tracked me down and I got recognised by my photo, which was quite good, in the street in Martin.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I found you on LinkedIn, which I never go on. I never go on LinkedIn. And there you were.
I never go there, and I only went on there because I was stalking an ex-boyfriend. Not stalking, as in what happened to the guy I actually lost my virginity to, you know?
Right. Yes. Oh my God. And that's
Yeah.
how I found you. Look at that. That's the circle of life.
To sign up to have a look at the picture and think, oh, that was good. That was a lucky escape. And there I was, and you found me.
And that's fantastic. And that's what I have found is as soon as you ask the question, everybody wants to talk about it. But until it's like you scratch off that scab, to make a lovely analogy. Yeah.
Oh,
and then all the pus
no.
comes oozing
Yeah.
out because everybody wants to share.
Everyone wants to
You
share.
must feel that I don't want to say that you were a bad counsellor, obviously, but that you're a better counsellor because of this.
I think so. I think on the whole, absolutely. I'm embarrassed of, in my 30s, doing relationship counselling with, an older couple where the woman clearly was going through menopause and I clearly did not address that. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I think back.
Yeah. I mean, it is embarrassing, but yet I don't think it is. I think it's indicative of the fact that women's health is so often sidelined that it wasn't something that was highlighted to us fucking ever.
Anywhere. And actually is still not.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's a tide, as it were, changing now a little bit, but only in the last year, I feel like, or even 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And only just, and then not really, and maybe amongst the middle class, but it's still missing a lot of people. It's going to still take years, 10 years, 20 years for it to get into the groups that would perhaps benefit treatments and talking about it more.
Okay, now I've got another introduction for you. It's so funny. Some people we've taken 10 minutes to get to menopause and we took 3.5 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah. This is your other introduction.
Okay, great.
Anna Sophia has been the director of the Counselling Centre for 18 years. She is an experienced counsellor and interactive drawing therapist who has a BA in social sciences and a diploma in counselling. She believes that affordable counselling should be available to anyone who seeks it and is very proud to have created an environment where this is possible. She is also a proud mum of a trans son and a chainsaw juggling son, and when faced with the seeming lack of treatments for her perimenopause symptoms, she researched up her wazoo and found a world of pungent unguents, patches and pills, there's those P's again, that have restored her vim and vigour. So we are going to hear all about it now. So again, welcome to Anna Sophia. But now, first of all, I want to ask, what is an interactive drawing therapist?
Ah, wow. Yeah, interactive drawing therapy. I could talk to you for hours about it, really.
Well, we'll just make a little pithy bullet point.
Just a little brief thing. Yeah. Okay, so personally, it's the only therapy that works for me because I don't need to talk. So basically, the client, draws on bits of A3 paper, works incredibly well. So it actually means the client is actually involved with their own drawing. It's not drawing as an art. It's not art therapy. There's a whole kind of theory and therapy that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. But let's just say you can do the work really quickly. You can get to basically the core of whatever issue you want to get to the core of very, very quickly.
Right. Cool. Right. On to my first question that I've been asking everybody with many and varied responses. So can you tell me what your relationship with your body has been like through your life and the journeys that it has been on?
It's a very, very big question.
It is, isn't it? It is. It's proven to be a very big question. Yeah.
Very, very big question. I have thought about this.
Yeah.
I have to say, actually, on the whole, very good.
Fabulous.
There's a couple of parts that go with that. One of those is that I'm happy with how I look. I always have been. Well, actually say no, except for when I was 13, when I had braces and I was like really, really skinny and had pimples. So I probably wasn't really that happy that year.
Wasn't into that, right? 1 year is great.
Once the braces came off and my body grew more womanly, I was happy. But I've always been a bit of a style queen. So I like to dress up the body as such, you know.
Mm-hmm. I can relate.
I just love clothes, and I always have loved clothes, and I've always loved fashion and style. And even when I was much younger, I was too. So, but I wasn't actually kind of living in my body, if that makes sense. So I was happy visually. I'm a visual person and a creative person, and I'm a thinker. So I live a lot of time in my brain. So I can drive to work and kind of wonder how I got there. I'm not sitting in awareness of my body. So even though, I'm visually happy with my body, I'm not necessarily always grounded inside my body, if that makes sense. I think my learning has been to be perhaps just a bit more grounded inside my body.
Right. And what about through having children, especially children 21 years apart?
Well, interesting one, isn't it? And both accidental.
Right.
Yes. I have got 2 children, 2 different fathers. I have never been married. I've actually never lived with somebody. I actually live next door to Connor. Connor is my 15-year-old, and I live next door to Connor's dad.
Right.
So actually, we still have a relationship. We just live next door to each
different
other.
strokes for different folks.
Absolutely different strokes. Very fortunate because Connor was a big surprise who appeared after Sean had a vasectomy.
Oh my word, that would be a surprise.
On my 42nd birthday, 7 weeks after the vasectomy. So chances of that are very remarkably slim.
Oh, yes.
That to happen.
And
yes.
can you do you go back to the surgeon and go, excuse me?
And the surgeons would say, actually, you needed the complete all clear. Hadn't had the all clear.
Oh, I see. Just too enthusiastic.
Just kind of thinking, I'm 42, not much chance. Didn't really think that one through. A bit embarrassing. I got pregnant when I was 21, and that's kind of right. I was 21, living in London. It was partying. It was things happen.
Yeah.
42, a little bit more common sense, you would think, of having to then announce to everybody that I was pregnant. Once again, to somebody I'd only been dating a few months.
I see. Right.
And here we are. I'm having another child. So my relationship with my body has always been good. In fact, actually, my 20s and 30s, I actually worked for a while, doing part-time work as a life drawing model because it was easy.
Oh, that's great.
Money,
I would never have done that.
Quite happy to get my kid off. Still, I'm probably the one person in the family who's like, oh, let's go for a swim, and take my clothes off and go swimming while everyone else is kind of hiding behind a tree or something.
Yeah, that's remarkably out there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I know. I'm a little bit like that. To me, a body is a body, and I've always been happy with mine. I have a fairly wide fluctuation of weight. I like them all, really.
That's fantastic.
Unfortunately, I do and have had, since Connor was born, issues with high blood pressure. That gets better if my weight is lower. But I hate dieting because I love food.
And has that been more difficult to keep it down once you've been menopausal?
Oh, absolutely. That was certainly what I wrote because I had an addiction to cake. Realised it was perimenopausal, and I just packed on the weight.
And sorry, is that a new addiction to cake, or is it a long-standing addiction to cake?
No, that was definitely new. I'm not actually a sweet fan. I prefer savoury. So I've never actually really eaten cake. But it became the meaning of my life. I've heard Lousie Newson talk about that. There's kind of, look, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, and this might not be exactly how it goes, but it's something like that. There is kind of a form of estrogen in fat cells or from eating bad food. So in a sense, basically my body's searching for estrogen in the cake.
Yeah, wow. Because Pinky was talking about that because she was overweight before she had a gastric bypass surgery, and that she had excess estrogen from being that size. So, wow. So your body is seeking cake to give itself the estrogen.
My body was seeking cake to get some estrogen, and I didn't realize that until I replaced my estrogen and just stopped craving. I stopped craving. I was out for lunch yesterday, actually, and is it cake time? Shall we have cake? And I was like, actually, no, I don't really feel like cake. In the end, I bought some cake, but I just had a couple of mouthfuls of it, and the rest of it's in the fridge.
Right.
Before I could eat the whole cake. Wow. And I would wake up in the morning and think, what sort of cake will I have today? That became my meaning of life.
Wow.
I've dropped 6 kilos just by not eating cake.
Wow.
Okay. But because I'm all patched up, because I'm on all my drugs.
Which we will get to. Yeah, we will get to.
I'm feeling just so much better. So much
better. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, take one step back. So your mother never obviously talked to you about menopause or anything around it?
Oh, my mother never talked to me about anything. My mother's Catholic, very Catholic. Right. Like 2 sisters are nuns. Like that kind of Catholic.
Your sisters or her sisters?
Her sisters.
Wow.
All of her sisters were nuns.
Wow,
yes.
That's so Catholic. So she never talked about anything?
No menopause, no periods. I think I got the booklet. I think she bought a booklet for me on periods, and my brother got the Wet Dreams book. I think there was,
Wow. She didn't outsource to anybody else, but just to a pamphlet.
Just the pamphlet. Like, right. Yeah, I had to step out in the world and experiment because nothing like that gets taught.
Are you 57?
I'm 57,
57,
yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So you are 10 years older than me, and were you taught about it at school?
Not talk about anything.
No, right.
I went to a Catholic school for the first 11 years of my life.
So did I, and we got taught about it.
So you got taught about it?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, totally missed that one.
Yeah, so it's amazing in that 10 years. What a difference.
We didn't do sex education at school. I mean, clearly me and my friends had to do our own sex education at school, but it certainly was nothing ever official taught.
Do you know, and that's so interesting to me, that so often people that don't get the sex education end up often getting pregnant and things like that, who haven't been,
Yes, it was interesting. Although my mother, bless her, even for all her Catholicism, did find out that I was quite sexually active quite young when she found my diary.
Oh, she read your diary. Oh my.
Read my diary, of which I had scored some of my boyfriends.
Out of what scale? Out of 10 or?
Out of 10. And let's just say she was pretty shocked. She did.
Did you, was it like blowjobs this, fingering that, or?
No, it was a point of how I felt,
Good.
so did I come away from the experience feeling good? Not that I knew very much about sex. I was very young and also underage. So, if this was today's environment, some of these boys would have ended up in the court. But this is what we did in Hunterville for fun.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so flash forward a few decades,
Yes.
and then you start experiencing menopause symptoms, but not being aware of. So, what were your symptoms?
I think that I wasn't aware. It's like COVID and menopause have come at the same time. If it hadn't been for COVID and that first lockdown in 2020, I probably would have avoided the symptoms because, as well as working, I did lead in the past tense a travelling life. Because Sean and I are both travellers. And when Connor announced his arrival, I said, well, I just want to travel. And Sean said, that's cool. I said, well, doesn't matter. We'll just take the baby with us. The baby will just have to learn how to be a traveller. Right. So kind of every 18 months or so, we go off on adventures for a couple of months. And so I was always planning a trip or on a trip, coming back from a trip. So I think that with that is an adrenaline and an excitement and a distraction. As I said before, I'm not necessarily a person who lives grounded in my body. So I may have had a lot of symptoms, but was excited. So was ignoring aches and pains and periods and stuff. And then come the lockdown, which is when everything for me just came into place, really. I was just going for walks. Palmerston North's very flat where I live, so I was walking around the neighbourhood very flat, and I'd come home in pain for walking 5Ks, which is nothing. I'm used to walking up and down hills, and I was
what sort of
so
pain?
Sore. Just aches in my hips, aches in my knees.
Yeah, because I've just got this new ache in my knee, so I'm like, right, okay, right.
Yes, ache in the knee, ache in the hips, ache in the shoulder, really sore shoulder for like months. And couldn't work that out, new pillows, kind of sleeping in different positions. Don't know what this is about. So there was those. They kind of snuck in, and I would do my walk, then I'd come home and put on Les Mills Body Balance, but I still just couldn't, it just wouldn't go away. And at night I'd wake up really hurt. Going to the toilet, oh God. I've been happily getting up once in the night for years. It happens when you have a child later in life. You're going to get up and go.
Or when you don't, just quietly. Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So, used to that. And I started waking up like about 6 times.
6 times?
So I would wake up, right, and I'd felt like I needed to go to the toilet. So I would go, but I didn't really need to go. Or I would wake up and think, maybe I should get up and go because otherwise I might wake up in another hour and need to go. And then I'd wake up in another hour anyway. So it was just getting insane. And then when I get back into bed, I couldn't actually go back to sleep. I realised in hindsight I was having a lot of anxiety, but didn't recognise it as being anxiety because I was just awake. I couldn't relax myself because I'd never really had anxiety as such or recognised what it was. Anyway, I was using a lot of kind of those tapping techniques called emotional freedom therapy, I think it is. I haven't trained in it. It's just that one of my colleagues showed me how to do it once. So I'd kind of do a number of kind of tapping techniques to try and get back to sleep.
And is that tapping on you or tapping on something?
Tapping on your head and the side of your hand and your face. And
right.
Google it.
Okay.
If anyone wants to check it out.
And are you lying, private by yourself usually in bed? Are you usually sleeping alone?
Yes. Once upon a time, I would say we used to sleep together, but something happens when you get over 50 and some people snore.
Yeah.
Not mentioning any names. So at this stage, it becomes great that we have separate houses.
Yeah. Because I know some people that definitely need to be apart to sleep because I wake up a lot anyway, and I always have, and my brain just doesn't stop. It just goes as soon as I wake up, and that can be hard to make it stop. And it's difficult when Matt's sleeping next to me because I can't turn on the light and all this sort of thing. So it's good that at least you can do whatever you need to.
Absolutely. We absolutely need to do it. And, with best intentions, we sometimes even say, or if we go on holiday and we get forced into the married couple's bed, and we really want it to work, but it just doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, I'm awake and up and down, not so much now that I'm on my drugs, but there's snoring going on. We're just not used to it.
Yeah.
It's very hard work, and we both end up absolutely exhausted.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
right.
easier to jump into bed with Connor, actually, and sleep. Yeah.
And did anything happen with your periods around this time?
Yeah, well, they were erratic,
Right.
certainly still coming, which was unusual anyway. This is probably going to sound quite arrogant, and I don't feel that it's arrogant. I had decided that I wasn't going to go through menopause because clearly, I was 56.
Yeah, which is old. Yeah.
I was still having periods. And was going to happen to everybody else.
Forever and ever.
I don't know. It was forever and ever. I was just not there. I was not there.
Right.
I just hadn't put it together because I was still having periods. When I think back, because there's always that hindsight though, I don't feel, and this is when I talked about in the article, the loss of desire. So I don't think I was like ovulating.
Right.
Because I kind of certainly had this waning sexual desire. But I didn't put that down to menopause either, because I didn't kind of think that one through either.
Replacing sex with cake.
Exactly. Cake, and to be honest, that's what I fantasized about, the cake.
So what's your favourite flavour of cake, I'd like to know?
Well, okay, so the Sugar Plum and Martin has this fabulous carrot cake.
That's my favourite. That was our wedding cake, right?
Oh, wonderful, with icing,
Right.
and cream. Always get the cream. No, don't do yogurt with this sort of cake.
No, I hate cream. Yogurt all the way.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. So I can go for that. And also I really like chocolate gatto. So,
right.
Yeah, but I've got to source that. The Sugar Plum Cafe is across the road from where I work, so can easily go and get that. Yeah. So that's the cake. So that would be, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd think, oh, great, I'm having cake this afternoon. Yeah, good, I can get it.
And your partner's like, what about a little bit of this sugar? What about some of this sugar?
Yeah.
And you're like, no.
No sugar, not
sugar.
interested.
Right.
So as well as all those other things you talked about me, I am a trained sex therapist.
Oh, wow.
I haven't practiced, but I did do a lot of relationship counselling. But I trained sex therapy with actually Mrs. Salisbury. Did you ever read Mrs. Salisbury?
Yes, in the Herald.
That's right.
Yes.
So she ran a course on sex therapy. So this was about 16 years ago, because it was before Connor. Clearly reawakened my interest in sex enough to get pregnant again. But I certainly didn't kind of put this, I've got this just waning lack of desire. Never really kind of thought about it, because I just thought it was circumstantial. I'm busy, he's busy, we have a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sort of something that we're taught, isn't it? That women are, we don't like sex as much and all that sort of nonsense. Yeah. And how much of that's been driven by hormones and completely sidelined probably as well. Over how long was this?
I think there was definitely a decline probably over a couple of years. And I was thinking about it. Right. People have sex for a lot of different reasons. But I think for me, my desire was definitely cyclical. It's certainly absolutely been about my cycle. It may not be the same for other women, but I always desired sex kind of from the day after my period finished up until the time I ovulated. I desired sex, a bodily desire to have sex. And then I'd feel another desire probably for maybe just 5 or 6 days before my period came. It was a different feeling of desire, but there was still kind of desire there, mixed in more with my creativity, because I probably felt like chopping his head off, but I still felt a desire for sex. But it was all very cyclical. Right. So from the age of like 13, 14 to up until, say, two or 3 years ago, that's how I rolled. And, it was nice. I was in a relationship. It was a long-term relationship. It's a great relationship. It works really well, despite the fact we don't live together, or probably because we don't live together, it works really well.
Yep.
But I really like the guy and I desire him. But if I'm not cycling and I'm not ovulating, then desire goes. It's not actually about him. It's about me. It's about my desire, and the way I used to desire sex has changed.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what it is. And so it's kind of waking up and going, actually, the relationship's still the same. He's still the same. But my desire for sex in the way that it used to be has gone, because I'm not a cyclical being. I'm not ovulating. My hormones have gone.
And you said that in your article, you said that you felt like that about just life, that you lost a zest for life.
All of it. And I think that women's energy, creativity, sexuality, spirituality, and I mean that in a really broad sort of sense, it's all the same energy.
Right.
From my perspective.
Right, okay.
It's energy. It's life. It's a life force.
And did you find that sort of manifested as brain fog as well?
I think the brain fog is a different kind of thing. I'm not sure that it manifests. I think the brain fog is just the lack of hormones changing the structure of the brain or something.
I'm sure lack of sleep has something to do with it.
Brain fog was just diabolical. Most of my role, because I'm the manager, is administrative. I have like 77 fairly boring things that I have to cycle through, but they're repetitive. I've been doing it for a long time. There's funding applications I need to be on to date. There's reports, there's meetings, there's just all that sort of boring kind of stuff that I can do, as well as planning a trip to the Galapagos Islands and working out what I'm going to have for dinner,
Right.
and talking to a friend all at the same time.
And suddenly you couldn't do that anymore?
I couldn't do one thing.
Oh, wow.
I would look at a funding application that I had written over and over, the same stuff for 15 years, and I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't work out how my computer worked. I couldn't open the document,
Oh, my God.
I would go away, and I'm just wondering why it's like wading through treacle. It's like suddenly what you just take for granted unconsciously, tasks you do unconsciously because you're so used to doing them. Suddenly I couldn't do any of them. I usually, and have been for years. And when I talked about not living in my body, I have to make myself exercise. I'm not one of these people who leaps out of bed full of friggin' joy and salutes the sun and then has a kale smoothie. That is not me. I have got to, in my brain, say, come on, Anna, it will be very good for you and your high blood pressure if you get out and go. But because my brain wasn't working, my brain couldn't pass on that message. So I would kind of get out of bed and I would be on the couch and I would just have to say, come on, you need to just kind of get dressed to go to work. And then I love dresses and I like dressing up. As I said, I think I have got quite a good style, but I could only cope with the black track pants and the black t-shirt.
And how long for?
I reckon that went on for a year. Looking at the photos, maybe, didn't have the energy to look after myself in that way. And I certainly didn't have the energy to cook. I hate cooking anyway. Look, I really do. But once again, I can do it and I can prepare healthy food. And if I've got the energy, it's fine. It's just like another task. Yeah, I'll do this. But I couldn't cope with it. I used to order my food bag, but then I'd dread it arriving because I'd have to unpack the box. That's how hard it was getting. So I just started ordering these ready-made meals, and they would come and I'd just chuck them in the fridge and the freezer, and I'd say to Connor, all right, what do you want? I'd hold one up. Here's the flavours this week. Chuck them in the microwave. Didn't have the energy to recycle the container even. We just eat out of the container.
Oh my God.
That probably just went on for a few months because it was during this time that all of these things came together. Lockdown, everything made sense. And I think I was reading a book called Life After 40, and I came across Lousie Newson and I looked her up, and then there was menopause. And then suddenly it was like the light went on.
I was about to say that must have just been this. It's like a rock bottom moment.
Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm menopausal. Could I not have known that?
Yeah. But it's that whole thing, isn't it? As soon as you get a diagnosis, it makes everything so much easier.
My regular doctor, who was very good, was away. She was on maternity leave. So I initially thought, well, I'll go to a menopause specialist. So I'm listening to Louise, and I listened to her podcasts, and I read a bit. I kind of found out what would be the good HRT to take. Or it's actually, in this side of the world, it's actually called MHT, but, probably calls it HRT because that's old school. So I tried to get an appointment in Wellington with a menopause specialist, but it was just booked up. It's one day a week. They have 1 day a week.
Yeah. And is that the same all over the country?
I just don't think there's many around. There's someone down in Christchurch, and maybe there's a couple in Auckland, but I'm not sure that it's not a full-time job. Nobody seems to care.
Yeah, and when you're that far away, it's difficult to get there.
And then I thought I should be able to. I know what I want.
And you know what you want from listening to Louise?
Yes.
Right.
So I decided that I wanted a transdermal patch because, I do travel a lot and I hope to still travel a lot. Doesn't cause blood clots.
And where does it go?
So that's the estrogen patch. So that goes at the moment kind of on my thigh. Okay. You can put it on your tummy, but I've got it on my thigh after watching Davina McCall do a YouTube video on the best place to put your patch. I also wanted, it's called Utrogestin. Now that is a micronized progesterone, and that is more natural. And because I have a womb, I need to take progesterone with the estrogen. Right. So I knew I wanted that. So I phoned up my doctor's surgery and I said, can I please have an appointment with a woman who knows about menopause? And they said, sure, absolutely. And because we were still doing phone appointments at this stage, I think it was just after lockdown, I talked to a very nice doctor, but clearly she was not a menopause expert at all. She was young and she was very nice and very helpful. I told her all of my symptoms. I talked about the brain fog, the aching joints, the going to the toilet, the lack of desire that I was feeling, the kind of lack of joy. I think the lack of joy, I'll just say a little bit more about that. That's a kind of an interesting one. That's like, I really just don't give a fuck. So either way, it's like, you've won lotto, Anna. I don't care.
Wow. Yeah.
The world is ending. I don't care. So it's not so much depression. It's
ambivalence.
Just a lack of joy.
Yeah.
Things that bring me joy, like beautiful flowers. There was no joy where I used to find joy. So I talked about that. Anyway, I was getting some hot flushes, not a whole lot and not bothersome because I live in the Manawatu. Having a hot flush is generally not too bad in my region. Didn't get night sweats. Anyway, she said, I can't give you any HRT for your symptoms. I can only give it to you for hot flushes and night sweats. And it was like a slap in the face, really. And I said, well, I do get hot flushes, actually. I do get a small amount. And she said, how many? And I said, well, about 12. I just grabbed a number out of the hat, really. And she said, oh, that's a lot. I thought, oh, okay, sure. So she agreed to give me a 25 number. The patches come in numbers. So it was a 25. It was the lowest dose. So she prescribed that. And then I had to ask her for the Eutrogestin because that's not subsidised, so I have to pay for that because Louise had basically said that's the safest progesterone to take.
Right.
So I asked for that, otherwise I would have just got a synthetic progestogen.
Okay.
So I got that.
You're a pharmacist, don't you? Yep, right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am a pharmacist.
Yeah, you are. Right.
I'm an unofficial pharmacist. In fact, the other day, my boyfriend and I were having a little rest on my bed, as you do in your old age, and he said, I've just noticed your bookshelf used to be filled with sex books and now it's filled with like tablets and medications, the whole lot. And I said, yeah, you're right. Lack of space. It's a real old people's house now. Right. So I've got piles and piles of medication.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I started taking it. Now, the progesterone, the estrogen's just brilliant. Put a patch on and by the end of the day, I was feeling better. That was how quick it was. Wow. It is incredible. It's like a little sticky bit of sellotape and suddenly joy returned.
That's so interesting because Pinky didn't enjoy it. Jennifer didn't enjoy it. Like the range of responses is just so crazy. But that's fantastic.
It is really interesting. Really fantastic. Yeah, I was thrilled. And I decided it would be experimental. Because although you talked about my symptoms here, I could have lived with them. I'm a strong person. I could have lived with them. But I didn't know if they would ever end. Because a lot of people talk about going through something like this
12 years.
5, 10, 15, 12. I don't know. I didn't want to risk that. And because of finding out that I was going to have the COVID vaccine, also because I have high blood pressure, I take medication for that. And I'm just thinking, why not take some medication? Yeah. I've had, I think, 4 friends have died in their 50s over the last 2 or 3 years of cancers not related to HRT. I'm in that age bracket where people are starting to die off from whatever. And I want the rest of my life to be as good as what it's always been.
Because there is a risk of cancers with these treatments, but it's a lot lower than it was initially said. It's something like the equivalent of drinking 2 glasses of wine a day or something?
That's right. So the risk of breast cancer is 1 to 2 people per 1,000 with taking the estrogen patches. Right. And less risk than 2 glasses of wine.
Yes. Right.
I don't drink, but certainly that cake was not doing me any favours.
Yes.
So, but I'm thinking, I wonder how many people have 2 glasses of wine because of menopausal symptoms.
Totally.
And if they whacked a patch on, they might not feel like it.
So that worked really well for you. Why did you want testosterone? Because you got some topical cream of testosterone?
Got my tea. I've got my testosterone. Now, that was a mammoth effort to get my tea.
Yes.
So I was feeling good. So the estrogen was good. A lot of my brain power came back, but not all of it. Desire was returning in little bits and pieces, not how it was. And I had been reading that testosterone was great for strength, energy, and brain clarity. It's hit and miss with desire, sexual desire, certainly. But I decided, I just wanted to try it in the experiment.
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely.
And so I asked once again this doctor who was filling in for my doctor, and she just laughed. She was just like, no, I can't do that, and changed the subject.
Wow.
I know. And it was like, Okay, so I was going up to the hospital. I had an annual appointment with the gynecologist up at Palmerston North Hospital. So we had that chat, and then I said, look, I'd really like some testosterone. Could you write me a prescription? Because it's off license. So it's not, you're not allowed it.
So you have to pay for that as well?
You have to pay for it, and it's really hard to get. If I was a man asking for some testosterone, because I had low testosterone, there would be a machine down on the corner. I'd probably just have to put in 50 cents and I'd get a packet.
Yeah, well, and if you're trans, obviously, you can get testosterone.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yes, yes. But no, not for women who make more testosterone than estrogen during their cycle.
I did not know that.
They have more testosterone. Women have testosterone, yay. But, we're not even allowed to have our testosterone because nobody even knows we have testosterone. There has been no research done on testosterone either.
There's no research in all of these situations.
No research. So there's still no research done past 5 years of any woman taking testosterone. So I am somewhat experimental. Anyway, she basically said no. She had never heard of women taking testosterone. So she's the gynecologist here in our public health system.
Wow.
So she said no. So I ended up having to send her all the information that I had, including information from the pharmacist in Auckland about testosterone. I had to really push her for it. And then I could only have it if I had hypoactive sexual desire disorder, because that's the only way that it can be prescribed.
And that means not horny. Not horny?
Exactly. She sent me in the email a sexual desire screener, of which I had to then answer a whole bunch of special little questions like, in the past, was your level of sexual desire or interest good and satisfying to you? Has there been a decrease in the level of your sexual desire or interest? Are you bothered by your decreased level of sexual desire or interest? Would you like your level of sexual desire or interest to increase? Please circle all the factors you feel may be contributing towards this current decrease. And then there's a whole bunch of them, including relationships or partners' sexual problems and everything, stress or fatigue. But then there is menopausal symptoms. So I said menopausal symptoms. But that said, I wasn't necessarily wanting testosterone for increased sexual desire.
Yeah.
I was wanting it for my brain and my strength and my energy. And as all women know, if your brain clarity is clear, you will have sexual desire because the path to a woman's sexual desire is through her brain.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes. Right.
So,
right.
After all of that and a mammoth effort, I did get my prescription and I got my testosterone. And it was magical. So it's the icing on the cake. It's that big icing on that
Right. So
cake.
you don't need the carrot cake anymore. You have the testosterone. Right. And it just gives you all of those things, the clarity.
All of these things. It gives me clarity. It gives me strength. It gives me my brain is working better than what it has worked for years and years and years.
Horniness?
Comes and goes.
Okay.
I have to get used to my body. It's not like it was. Some of the women who are taking HRT are saying, oh, it got me back to where I was. It's not that, because I'm not cyclical. I'm not ovulating. I'm having withdrawal bleeds because I'm still taking it in a cyclical manner.
Right.
But I have to get used to the new rhythm.
Right.
I am living a medicated life. So it is actually getting used to my body on this medication and what is the rhythm of that and how does it work.
Right. And how long do you want to do that for?
Oh, I'm happy to do it forever until my body tells me it's not working anymore.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. There is, and this, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a doctor, but there's been very, very early research into the fact that taking HRT can help ward off dementia. Women are more likely to get dementia than men. Also, osteoporosis, heart disease. So a number of things. So taking it as a preventative. Bearing in mind this whole idea of perhaps we're going into it naturally is that we're not actually supposed to be alive as human animals.
Yes, indeed.
At all. We're done. We should be dead. It's just that really our modern lives are keeping us alive. So no, as long as I feel good, I would be nervous to come off it now.
Right.
Because I just go back to that and then I kind of fall back into those same old, because I like to lead an active life. I don't want sore hips and sore knees, and I like my brain.
Do you think there's any part of it that could have some sort of placebo effect going on?
Yeah, it could well do.
Yeah.
It could well do. When I wake up in the morning and I go through my whole medication regime before I go out the door.
Smearing things, sticking things.
But Yeah, I don't know. No, I think that kind of top up in estrogen and testosterone. And I also notice when I'm on the progesterone cycle that I feel a lot more zen
Right.
than on the estrogen. When I first started taking it, I really loved the estrogen bit, but I've begun to really actually like the progesterone part too.
Okay.
I feel a real sense of zen clarity with it.
And it's so interesting to be so in tune with your hormones that most women, we know what's happening, but to be so in tune, knowing which one you're responding to and stuff is a whole different world. So now, one thing that I do think is that currently the words "do your own research," I've done my you do the research, etc., are somewhat dirty words around COVID and vaccines and things like that. So have you thought about that? Have you pushed up against that? Have people pushed back against that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, that whole kind of do your own research. When I wrote the article, I didn't do a huge amount of research. Mostly it was like listening to Lousie Newson, who has done a massive amount of research. She's put all the energy into it. And on her podcast, she talks to a lot of experts in their field who know about menopause. So it was really just listening to them. And if I saw something that clicked, I'd read up on their articles and so forth.
The thing about doing your own research is making sure that it's not YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. It's academic studies. So they've been tested. It is researched. Equally, I could have gone down the natural route. I could have researched that. But I've had that experience when I first got diagnosed with high blood pressure, which was about 10 years ago, and I couldn't believe it. I could not accept that I would have high blood pressure. How could it be possible? I'm reasonably fit. I'm not necessarily that overweight. I eat well, all of those kinds of things. And so the doctor said, I want to give you meds. I said, no meds for me. I'm not taking any meds. I'll do this the natural way. And I probably spent $1,000 or so trying to do natural, getting rid of my blood pressure in a natural way, as well as an bigger effort with exercise and diet and losing weight, blah, blah, blah. In the end, it was a little pill that didn't cost me anything on prescription that brought my blood pressure down.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I know, and Louise will talk about this a lot, is that a lot of people spend a lot of money. There's a lot of supposing natural supplements for menopause. It's a market. It's a multi-billion-dollar market to get women to buy these supplements. But the actual HRT that I'm taking is made, as far as I know, out of wild yams. That's what they're saying. So it's not the horse urine. It's pretty much a natural product as such.
I don't know about the horse urine. Is that another source of estrogen?
That was the old style pills. They were the ones that were used initially, the old days, the old style HRT.
Wowzers. Right. Okay. Well, you have been an absolute fountain of knowledge indeed. Is there anything else that you really wanted to hit?
I don't know. I would say don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid. You've got any of the symptoms, have an experiment. Even if you're really kind of fearful of taking it, there's not going to be any harm done to try it out for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's certainly up to you.
Yeah. And you must feel a sense of accomplishment from all this.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just happy to have myself back. And as I said, better than before. My brain is working so well. I have access to so much information I'd completely forgotten about. Who doesn't want that back? And I know that many women in their 50s are struggling in their work with brain fog.
And interesting, though, that Jennifer said it does come back with a vengeance, your brain function.
Yeah, people are saying it comes back.
Yep.
But I am too scared to wait to see if it comes back because what say it doesn't come back.
But can you not just start the regime again?
Yeah, I guess you probably could, But how would my body go with that? I don't know. I don't have any answers for that.
No. That's the thing. So much of it is so up in the air, but you just have to do, as with always, I think, what feels right for you.
Absolutely. What feels right for you and just keep going. And I'm just like, well, if it works, it works. It's also, as you know, a changing world. This works for me at the moment. Who knows?
Never a truer word was spoken. Who knows indeed.
Yep.
So now it's time for my fun fact. Out of the box section, do you have a fun menopause fact for us?
Well, look, I really do. Now, it's not fun. It's a no fun fact. But I thought about this and I thought I'm going to talk about vaginal atrophy.
Oh, yes. Now, we've had dry vaginas, but yes, tell me about atrophy.
Yes. I've managed to ward off my own vaginal atrophy by Ovestin cream. So that's another one of my medications. Right. So you inject this into your vagina twice a week. It's Ovestin cream. It's very, very low estrogen. So you can actually use this without taking the full Monty of drugs.
Right.
This really helps with the whole going to the toilet issue.
Right.
So if you've got an issue where you're going to the toilet all the time or you're getting UTIs or any of those things, you can probably ward off your atrophy.
And so, and what exactly is vaginal atrophy?
It has a range of issues that go with that. So it's kind of anything in the mild of vaginal dryness.
Yeah.
So you've just got vaginal dryness. Well, you've escaped the worst of it, but a lot of it is discontinued UTIs. Pain. A lot of women have it so bad that they can't even sit down. Like really, really bad.
Right.
And pain during, sexual intercourse, or
Yeah.
as they say, PIV, penis in vagina. I just learnt that one relatively recently.
Is that some youth slang?
It seems to be. That's what's the joy of having a teenager in the house.
So what happened to rooting? Rooting. What happened to rooting?
It's not rooting. Rooting went out in the 80s, I think.
Well, that's about when I was around. Yep.
Yes, and around the whole pain and soreness.
And thinning skin and all
thinning
of that.
skin, ripped skin,
Yes.
bleeding skin.
Yes. This has been a non-fun fact.
So I use Ovestin to ward off that. I think I may have got there in the nick of time, just
Right.
save my vagina.
Congratulations.
So I would say for anybody who is not yet perimenopause, and maybe you can just use your vagina and have a good time, because there is more than likely an expiry date on it, I'm afraid to say.
God.
I wish in hindsight that I had made more use,
Oh, really? It sounds like you got quite good use out of it, from
Well,
what you can say.
I could have done better. There's always more. There's always more.
You could have got more bang for your buck. Yay! Wow. Well, thanks for that unfun fact that's depressed the fuck out of everybody out there.
I know, it really has. And I would also say, I'm going to say this, for older people who are in relationships and the woman has lost her desire. I think we live in a society where it's still not talking about women's sexuality and women's desire and women's sex. That's probably a whole podcast on its own, eh?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it is huge. It is huge. Women losing their desire or the vaginal atrophy. Obviously, sex is going to be a whole different issue. It's going to affect them. It's going to affect their relationships. Relationships will possibly break up over it. You do need to have some really good conversations together. You need to be talking about it. It is a big thing. It is a real thing. So, have some conversations. You can't just go to bed and expect to do the same old that you were doing when you were younger. It's just not going to work that way. We need to learn about this together. And I thought what Pinky was saying was quite lovely.
Her intimacy Sundays.
Her intimacy, that's lovely. I mean, I don't want to go there yet. I'm not in my 60s yet, quite. I'm still ready for a bit more action. She was right spot on. Even if it's just saying, well, we need to actually have conversations about this. Yeah, it's not just about doing things the same old way. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, open and honesty. Well, I think that's a lovely place to leave. Let's everyone be open and honest and learn together. And thank you so much for being so very educational.
Thank you.
No worries. Have a wonderful time in Palmerston North, the Paris of the North Island.
Yes, I will. And I don't think you'll be lining up to go to the mall after this, will you?
No, except to get some of that squirty stuff. I'll put a list of all these things on Facebook or some such, or I'll just direct people to the fantastic spin-off article where it's all listed there.
I think that's a great idea.
I think and that'll get you more hits. Lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much, my dear, and we'll see you another time.
Bye.
Bye. So that was the fully informed Anna Sophia, who has gone down that medicated route, and ecstatically so. Dr. Lousie Newson is her guru, and I've watched a few of her videos, and she is hugely knowledgeable and also very calm. Sounds very nice. Seeing her in person cost you 275 squids, but her book, Menopause, All You Need to Know in One Concise Manual, Signs and Symptoms, is only $11 on Kindle. And also she has the Dr. Lousie Newson podcast, which has a bazillion pieces of information that you can find out. Also, you can search Anna Sophia on the spin-off to see her article, which outlines her meds, her HRT/MRT journey, etc. Ovestin is the squirty estrogen to maintain your squirty vagina. So 60% of women have mild symptoms around menopause, 20% have no symptoms, and 20%, like Anna, have some more severe symptoms. So that's what we need to know about. So please share this podcast. That is the best way to get the word out there to help normalize menopause talk so that people know what they're in for and can have empathy around what other people are experiencing. Also, you could head to my Patreon if you felt like you wanted to contribute a little bit to the making of this podcast, considering I have no idea when I will work again. But in the meantime, as Pinky Agnew said way back in my very first podcast, stay juicy. Or hey, maybe stay squirty. Thanks a lot. This has been Showy Ovaries. I've been Penny Ashton.